From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. This is episode 563. I'm Andrew in our forum, Andrew NLSC on X. I'm joined as always by my co-host Derek, DP3 in the forum, and DP3G and DP384 on X. Derek, time to talk basketball and basketball gaming, so please, tip us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So first we will discuss who we would like to see make a new college basketball game first, EA Sports or 2K Sports. Second, I asked the community who they wish they could play like from the past and present NBA. And lastly, Andrew and I had an excellent session on NBA Live 2004 that we want to talk about. The gameplay video reflecting that session is also up on the NLSC YouTube. It is Suns versus Rockets. But first, Andrew, as reported by the Sports Business Journal, EA Sports College Football 25 is the best-selling sports video game of all time in the U.S., eclipsing NBA 2K21. Because of this success and the fact that college games can once again be produced, there have been countless rumors floating around that EA Sports is having internal discussions about bringing their college basketball series back. It has also been reported, and when I say reported, Andrew, I mean rumors spread by big accounts on social media,
of course,
that 2K Sports is also having internal discussions about bringing back their college basketball franchise. So this got me thinking, who would I want to come out with a new basketball video game first? So before I give my answer, what would you like to see?
EA. Look, it's unthinkable that we want EA to be the savior of the virtual hardwood. EA Sports, a company not known for consumer-friendly practices, not known for really good basketball games, exceptional basketball games for a long time now, but we've had a 2K monopoly for too long. I want an alternative. I want EA to throw their head back into the ring. I think that a college basketball game would be a great way to do that. You're not directly competing with NBA 2K. I mean, you kind of are, but you are offering something different. So it's a way to get back into the basketball gaming space. If they can develop the technology to make a great basketball game, a current-gen basketball game, one that doesn't feel generations behind, then that does pave the way for NBA Live's return. Look, we've seen what 2K will do. It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of reskin NBA 2K. I'm sure they'll go to the trouble of making it resemble collegiate basketball, don't get me wrong, but it's going to have all the microtransactions, it's going to have the open world, it's going to have all kinds of 2K stuff that we're sick of, and that 2K style of gameplay. I want an alternative, Derek, so as mad as it may seem to some people, I say EA.
Yeah, so I agree, but before I get to the details around my answer, here's a fun tidbit also from that article, and I think you'll enjoy this. EA Sports College Football 25 also ranks 43rd on Circana's best-selling games of all time chart for the U.S. The best-selling game of all time in the U.S. is Grand Theft Auto 5, and apparently by a lot.
Oh, well, see, that's been that's been released for like 3 generations now, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, for me, similar boat. I would like to see EA come out with a new college basketball game first, mostly because I'd like to see something different. I have a little 2K fatigue right now, especially with this motion system. I don't think the PS5 Gen 2Ks have been strong. I think it's actually been a step back for the series. I'd like a different gameplay experience as well as a new visual experience as it relates to graphics. I also think that if EA Sports produces a college basketball game first, and if it's strong, like their college football game, EA will win back consumers and take some of the basketball gaming market share from 2K, which will provide them with the motivation and funding to bring NBA Live back. So yeah, same boat. I'd like to see EA Sports bring a college basketball game back first. And I do think that if it's well made, it will make a huge splash in sports gaming. And I do think that they'll take some of that market share back as well.
Absolutely. And you have that advantage of people really wanting that alternative. I have an upcoming Monday Tip-Off article talking about NBA Live having an unthinkable opportunity, but that opportunity potentially starts with college basketball. And you look at why college football succeeded, people have been begging for that for years, anticipating another college football game. NCAA Football 14, very well received. People have been wanting a sequel to that, a follow-up to that, and the series to return for so many years. And we have a similar situation in the basketball gaming community, of course. And there's always people that doubt that. Who wants to see NBA Live return? We've seen some big names, have we not, on social media, Derek? Some influencers, some pundits saying, oh, nobody cares about Live. Nobody wants to see it return. Those people do not have their finger on the pulse. Is it going to have an uphill battle? Absolutely. But you see a lot of people, more and more people, talking about needing that competition, needing other basketball games, missing the time when we had multiple games on the market, NBA and college. It's not going to have the NCAA license this time. They're avoiding that so that they can pay the players individually and not have to worry about all of the other licensing agreements. It also allows them to have an international release, which wasn't the case with NCAA games back in the day, basketball, football, whatever. So, yeah, those people do not know what they're talking about. They do not have their finger on the pulse of the basketball gaming community. I'm not saying everybody is desperate for Live to return, but there's definitely interest there, and EA needs to capitalize. And if that begins with a college basketball game, I'll play it, Derek.
Well, a couple things. Once again, the people saying stuff like that is the minority. You know, the people that are balking at competition coming in to the space.
And there's shills,
too. It's very few. Normally it would be a shill that would be making those comments, and it's unfortunate, but again, it is the minority, and that is nice to see. I also want to point out that one of the biggest reasons why EA Sports College Football 25 was such a massive hit and so many people picked it up is because it's the only college football game out there, right? And people were craving a college football game. And you know damn well that if 2K had produced a college football game and it was 2K Sports College Football 25 or whatnot, that it would have been a massive success, right? It would have sold incredibly well, just like the EA Sports game. So, that was incredible by, EA Sports to get in front of that situation and be the first to come out with a college football game. And I think that they're better for it. And I think that it opens up doors, right? It possibly gives them more funding. It helped them create meaningful relationships in that space that could help them with a college basketball game. So, yeah, I think that, just like, over 10 million people purchase the NBA 2K games every single release. That would happen with a college football game as well if there's only one college football game out there, right? And I think that I've seen a lot of positive reviews about EA Sports College Football 25. Most people loving it. I see gameplay videos still constantly showing up on social media, people making big plays, just, talking fondly about the game. But even if that game wasn't as strong as it was, and they didn't put all of that effort into the game to make it super appealing to consumers, it still would have sold incredibly well because people were craving a college football game, right? And they would have picked it up anyway. So, I would love to see EA also get in front of that situation as it relates to college basketball games. I would love for them to give people a fresh look at a basketball game. I do think that there's a lot of 2K fatigue out there as it relates to gameplay and whatnot. And I think if they came out with a college basketball video game and they were the first to do it, it would be a monster success.
Definitely, and hopefully they've developed some technology that they can share with the with a potential basketball game development team, and learned a few things about marketing the game, working with the community, not shutting out the old guard that is eager to support an alternative to NBA 2K. These are all lessons I've hoped they've learned, and as you say, building up that funding, developing the technology, and knowing how to market a game, because they certainly did come up short on that front with NBA Live on the 8th generation there. And of course, the other important point that you noted there is that the game turned out pretty well. I can't really speak to the quality of it. I haven't played it. I don't play football games, so I couldn't really tell you whether it's good or bad. I'm not good at them, so I'm not in a position to judge the quality of football games. But the response, as you said, very positive. So it is important, as we've said before, that if they do make a return with Live or a college basketball game, it must impress, and hopefully they're in a position to do so.
Relationships and reputation both of those pieces are huge.
So
right?
vital.
And, because of, being the number one selling sports game in the US of all time, they now have a strong reputation, right? Especially when it comes to, college sports games and whatnot. And now they've been able to build relationships as well that they may not have, been able to if they hadn't produced that game. So, I think that the future is bright for EA Sports when it comes to, the college sports scene, because you can't stop here, right?
Yeah.
You can't stop with just a college football game. That, they're going to have to produce another one. So we should see EA Sports College Football 26. And now people are hungry for more, right? They want to see what they can do possibly in that college basketball space. So I would love to see it. And I think that if I ask this question to the community, if I turn this into a community question, I think it would either be split down the middle, 50-50. Some would want, 2K to make a college basketball game because they're already established and there are still people that are enjoying that series. And then it would be 50% saying, hey, we want to see something new, or it would tilt in EA's direction. So, I may have to put that out there for a community question.
For sure, and I think there would be divisive opinions, obviously, but there is that belief in EA Sports that hasn't been there for years, and conversely, people don't trust 2K as they used to.
Yeah, exactly. And I would hope that if EA, comes out with a college basketball game, that once again, just like with EA Sports College Football 25, that they are fair to the gamer, that it's not predatory in nature in any way, that they give people the tools to customize their experience, that the game is deep, that the gameplay is fun, but that, at the end of the day, people don't feel like they were taken advantage of. And I think that that's a big problem, obviously, with, the NBA 2K series right now.
Yeah, and look, we're not so naive that we think that EA will never do anything like that. I mean, they do have that reputation for a reason, but you definitely don't want to blow any potential goodwill out of the gate by immediately being greedy. So, if nothing else, give us a few years before you build up to that, EA.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, NBA-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at NBA-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
So, Andrew, let's get to this week's community question. I asked Hoopheads if you could play like one player from NBA history, who would it be? Also, who in the current NBA would you want to play like? And, for our answers, I actually chose by position. So who I would like to play like at each position. So I'll start this one off. At point guard, Jason Williams. I was obsessed, Andrew, with his ball handling, his passing ability, his quick pull-up shots. I'll also take his swagger as well if I can have that. Played with a ton of swagger. Otherwise, I'm probably going with Magic Johnson or Penny Hardaway because of the size at that position, because of the ability to see the floor at all angles, the incredible passing, just the way they could move up and down the court, just a blur up and down the court, no look passes to the left and the right. Their ability to finish at the rim. Magic was an underrated finisher at the rim. Both of them could operate out of the post. Both of them could hit the three, especially Magic Johnson later in his career before his first retirement. He was definitely shooting the three incredibly well. So just having that size at the point guard position and the ability to move the way that they could, and just make everybody better around me, I would love that. And then an honorable mention to a guy like Steve Francis for similar reasons as Jason Williams, but I'd love to have Francis's hops, Andrew. The ability to throw it down. The funny thing is he couldn't palm a ball, self-admittedly, but he could just get up so high that he could still perform in the dunk contest and have big throwdowns in games and whatnot. So for you, who would it be at point guard?
Well, I love those picks, first of all. Steve Francis, you reminded me of the 2002 dunk contest where they had that wheel, an early example of a very gimmicky addition to the dunk contest. I'm glad they didn't bring it back because it did stifle creativity. Tried to make Steve Francis do a dunk where he needed to palm the ball, and that's when he famously said, "No, I can't palm the ball." I'd probably go with someone like a Derrick Rose. Look, it'd be great to be a John Stockton or a Magic Johnson, Steve Nash and so on, but I never dunked in a game, Derek. I'd love to be able to get up there and throw it down. I did have one attempt in a game. I was trailing a teammate. He put up a layup. It bricked off the rim. I leapt. I grabbed it, and I mishandled it, and I just powered it off the back of the rim. Almost had a putback dunk for my very first in-game dunk. What would have been my very first in-game dunk. So, yeah, I'd love to be a Derrick Rose, just be able to blaze all over the court and make those acrobatic moves at the rim and get up and throw it down, and have Stacey King obviously commentate on those dunks because he always made Derrick Rose's dunks even more exciting. So, yeah, I'm going to have to give some love to Derrick Rose here.
Yeah, can you imagine the feeling you would have had if you threw it down on Dragic like that? Just the ability to have that quick jump, that huge throwdown with two hands, and just the crowd reaction and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, I can't blame you for wanting to play like Derrick Rose. So at shooting guard, Andrew, Michael Jordan, for obvious reasons. In my opinion, the greatest player of all time, the most dominant, combining both ends of the floor, the most aesthetically pleasing game, all the moves, all the athleticism. It would be glorious. Just, if I want to take somebody in the post, big or small, I could do that. And I'd have a plethora of moves down there. I'd have the unstoppable mid-range game. I think Jordan is the best mid-range shooter of all time. I could step out and hit that three, but would obviously want to be operating more inside the three-point line because I'd be just so dominant there. Just my acrobatic layups around the hoop. I'd love to jam it on Alonzo Mourning a few times as well. Maybe throw one down on Mutombo. Just his aerial antics, just all of it. Being able to play like Michael Jordan would be just an absolute dream.
I mean, I bought all those meals from Macca's and I still can't be like Mike. But no, that was the thing, wasn't it? We want to be like Mike. That was the marketing slogan, and people did. And to be able to play like him at both ends, to have that skill, that athleticism, that coordination to do all those amazing things, and to do it without even really thinking. Because he talked about how many times he went up in the air, whether it was in the dunk contest or going up on a drive in a regular game, and just kind of deciding what he wanted to do in the air and just making it look like it was this pre-planned, incredible sequence. It just came to him so naturally. Yeah, absolutely want to be like Mike.
Yeah, the ability to meet people at the rim on the defensive end too, right? Swat people. The ability to lock up another team's best player and, just to be able to have the hands that he did. It would just be unbelievably fun. So for you, Andrew, I'm guessing your shooting guard choice is also Michael Jordan.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't even need to go into that. At small forward, I'm going with Larry Bird. It's the all-around game. It's the ability to play point forward at times, the ability to make shots from all over the floor. It's the passing. It's the rebounding. It's the team defense. The ability to make everybody better around me. People would love to play with me, right, if I had the game of Larry Bird, and I'd love to take his attitude as well, because he took no crap from anybody, and he would talk trash and he would get in fights with anybody. So his toughness as well. But yeah, Larry Bird's my choice for small forward.
It's actually my choice as well. I'd love to have that confidence, that swagger to tell people, I'm going to get the ball here and I'm going to shoot it and I'm going to make it and then do it.
Yeah, exactly. At power forward, I'm going with young Dirk Nowitzki. That might surprise you. He could just move, Andrew, and he could get his shot off in any situation. And I'm talking about like early 2000s Dirk Nowitzki, because I think that is the most impressive version of Dirk. I'd love to have that size. I'd love to have that skill set. I'd love to be able to shoot over anybody at any moment and have that confidence that it was going to splash through the net. He was also an underrated rebounder when he was younger, an underrated team defender. He had length. He was also built in the early 2000s, so I would consider him an incredibly athletic 7-footer for any era of the NBA. So I'm going with young Dirk. I do have a few honorable mentions, though. Young Amar'e Stoudemire is one of the most impressive power forwards I have ever seen. The way he could dominate games in the mid-range and then, driving from the high post, from around the free throw line, just his dominant display of dunks at the rim. And he could hold it down back then as well on the defensive end. Just such an impressive player in the early mid 2000s. And then I also have young Barkley, just his motor, his ability to be a one-man fast break. Young Barkley could get up with the best of them and was an amazing shot blocker for his size. Just the ability that it's just that two-way play and that dominance and that strength. He could hit that mid-range shot too and post up. So young Barkley would just be fantastic to play like. And MVP Garnett. Kevin Garnett was just an amazing all-around power forward and once again could dominate on both ends. And he just had such a pleasing game, like aesthetically. Just the way he would take those shots in the mid-range. The way he would overpower defenders on his drives, just his attitude on the defensive end and everything he could provide on that end. MVP KG, how fun would that be?
Oh, those are some great picks across the board. And Dirk was the pick that came to mind immediately for me because I was that centre power forward that after I had my ankle injury, as I've talked about in the show before, I developed a bit of a three-point shot. I would have loved to have been a fully fledged Dirk-like player. What a tremendous player, as you said. Loved rebounding, though, so the Charles Barkley pick also appealed to me, and Kevin Garnett, one of my all-time favourites as well. But I'm going to actually pick Shawn Kemp. Again, being able to throw it down like that, being able to put it on the floor, go coast to coast as he did. I would do that sometimes playing in the local leagues, inspired by players like Kemp, obviously. Not being able to finish like him, wish that I could. But also having that shooting touch, a deceptive shooting touch, even being able to step back and hit a couple of surprising threes from time to time. The Rain Man, people forget how good he was.
Yeah, I could play like the Rain Man Shawn Kemp on a 7-foot rim.
Of course.
Absolutely. The closest I ever came to dunking in real life is I was able to dunk a tennis ball. I could never get a basketball over the rim. But yeah, I mean, Shawn Kemp, obvious choice for you and would be a choice of many, honestly. At center, I have Akeem Olajuwon. The ability to step out and hit the J, the footwork, the defense. Hakeem was also incredibly athletic for the majority of his career and had his fair share of nice dunks and poster jams. I love big guys with great footwork to go along with the size and players who use that footwork, that athleticism, and their movement smart on both ends. So yeah, Akeem is a no-brainer for me.
As always, Derek, I must stress that we don't actually discuss these picks before we get on the mics and talk to each other. So it's not like we're looking at each other's exam paper, but Hakeem is my pick as well. I really wish I could have played like Hakeem as a centre back in the day, making those post moves. I had a bit of a shooting touch, as I said, developed a little bit of a three-point shot, would have liked to have had his really reliable shooting touch, his underrated shooting touch. But that footwork, that coordination, and all those moves in the post, and that quiet leadership, being Hakeem would have been a dream for me.
I will say this, if I could dunk like anybody, it might be Daryl Dawkins. Just some of his dunks where it looks like he's climbing up the defender and throwing it down, all the different ways he could throw it down, breaking the backboard. He was just a beast. So probably like Shaq or Daryl Dawkins, etc. So what about for today's NBA? Well, honestly, I'm not a big fan of today's NBA game overall, but I did have choices for each position. But what do you got for point guard?
It's a boring pick, I know, but I'm going to go with Steph Curry. I'd love to be able to just shoot so effortlessly like that, making it look easy to just pull up from anywhere and make the shot. And look, I know that in some ways that has spoiled the modern game, thinking that everybody can shoot like Steph Curry, and no, they can't. But it's just some of the shots we've seen him pull up and make over the years, just to have that confidence, that effortless stroke. And of course, he's also a fine playmaker, and he can handle the rock. So, yeah, Steph Curry.
Yeah, once again, we do not share our picks before we record. So, yeah, my point guard pick is Steph Curry. Limitless range, ball on a string, can escape most double and triple teams, amazing conditioning, underrated passer. I'm going with Curry at point guard.
So, shooting guard, Derek, and these days it feels like a lot of backcourt players, well, certainly the prominent ones, are kind of combo guards. And in that spirit, I'm going to go with Luka Doncic. I know that he's been listed as a point guard for most of his career, did play shooting guard in his rookie season, but again, his smarts, his ability to do pretty much everything, despite not being the most athletic player on the floor. And I was not the most athletic player on the floor when I played in the local leagues, Derek. So yeah, I'd love to have the skill set of a Doncic, but I would like to be a bit more of a dedicated defender than he is.
Yeah, I mean, that was embarrassing, the way he played defense in the finals against the Celtics. My shooting guard choice is Donovan Mitchell, actually. Strong, can bulldoze or play the finesse game. Beautiful shot, excellent from three and the mid-range. Has one of my favorite step backs in the NBA today. Great at creating space. Another well-conditioned player, like I stated, tough and whatnot. I'd love to be able to play like Donovan Mitchell.
He's becoming a favorite of ours, I think, and certainly after playing with him in Live 18.
Yeah, nice to see somebody who's truly dedicated to his craft and who, in my opinion, oftentimes plays the right way. It's one of the reasons why I've always liked Jamal Murray's game. I feel like Jamal Murray plays the right way. I think he's a tough player, and he shows up in big moments. He's actually a better performer in the playoffs even than the regular season. So, yeah, I like Jamal Murray as well.
Jamal Murray would have to be one of my honorable mentions, and I do really enjoy Jamal Murray. There is so much value in that player who can have 3 bad shooting quarters. It's not his night, but he never loses that confidence, and in the fourth quarter will just show up and just suddenly go 8 for 8 or make that game-winning shot at the end of the quarter. I would much rather have a player like Jamal Murray who can struggle for 3 quarters. Sometimes, he certainly doesn't always struggle for 3 quarters, but can struggle for 3 quarters and then just turn it on in the fourth, never be shaken, than somebody who gets a triple-double through 3 quarters and just disappears in the fourth.
Well, that's why everybody loved Isaiah Thomas with the Celtics, right? Is because he showed up in the fourth quarter. He showed up in the big moments. He showed up in the playoffs. And, you got to love players like that.
So this might be kind of a surprising pick, Derek, because he's not one of my favorite players. I don't really like his attitude or the attitude that he came to display. Certainly liked his younger attitude more. But Kevin Durant, again, the length, the athleticism, the coordination, the skill. One of the most skilled offensive players, I feel, in the history of the game. Just being able to shoot from anywhere, put the ball on the floor, finish inside. He added muscle after his early career where he was criticized for being rail thin and not having that strength, but he can finish at the rim and dunk over people as well. Yeah, Kevin Durant, I've not enjoyed his later career as far as leaving the Thunder as he did and chasing the rings with the Warriors and some of the comments he's made and having burners on Twitter, X, and some of the ridiculous stuff there, but a tremendous player.
Yeah, I can't fault you with that choice. I'm going with Kawhi Leonard. Just the all-around offensive attack. The fact that he is a great defender, I would feel the utmost confidence on both ends of the floor if I had the skill set of Kawhi Leonard, and hopefully, with these examples, I get his body as well, right? I know that he, one of the kings of load management, one of the kings of injuries in today's NBA, but I'll take a healthy Kawhi Leonard skill set. That would be fantastic.
Well, I mean, we're taking the skill set, not necessarily the career path, are we not? So, I mean, I'd take Bill Walton's skills, even though I wouldn't take all of his troubles with his feet.
That's a great point as well.
So for power forward, I'm going to say Giannis. Again, just that athleticism, just being able to finish at the rim as he does, just dunk over everybody. Yeah, Derek, I guess it comes down to wishing I could dunk.
Yeah, don't we all? Power forward, I'm actually going with a healthy Zion Williamson, a motivated Zion Williamson, because a healthy and motivated Zion Williamson is jumping out of the gym and is just a matchup nightmare. I said on a prior show, I think when a healthy and motivated Zion Williamson is out on the floor, he gets guarded closer and faces more double and triple teams than anybody else that I see in today's NBA. They have to throw two defenders on him out at the 3-point line in hopes to stop him before he can get to the hoop. And if he touches the ball in the mid-range or in the post, they're always sending a second defender at him. Just his ability to quickly rise up, his unorthodox finishes at the hoop, which he seems to make the majority of the time. I think he would be a ridiculous player if he could stay healthy and motivated. He'd definitely be at the top of the league as far as talents and production.
A lot of question marks with Zion, and it's not like he has had a bust of a career. He's no Kwame Brown as the number one pick, and even Kwame had a more solid career than he's often given credit for, but it hasn't quite really panned out for Zion so far.
Not yet. I'm hoping it turns around for him. He's still young, but I don't like what I'm seeing from him, from an attitude standpoint, from a punctual standpoint, from, a dedication standpoint. So, yeah, I'd like to see better from him.
It's not a comparison as far as their skill sets or their style of play, but he brings to mind a Joe Barry Carroll, or Joe Barely Cares, as he was derisively nicknamed, where he has the talent and is that number one pick, but just isn't dedicated to being a superstar.
But he played a lot more than Zion.
True.
That's the thing. And he was healthier than Zion. He just showed a lack of care when he was out there. But I'll tell you what, these teams in the NBA would rather see him out there and playing and whatnot, even if he was, 75 or 80% effort, than they would for him just being out all the time.
Oh, for sure. And finally, for center, I'm going to have to go with Jokic. It's that all-around skill set. It's that ability to step back and make shots. It's the wild shots that he makes. The 2023 finals, he was making some incredible shots against the Heat there, and he's made incredible shots against other teams as well, but that was a very fun finals for me to watch. And again, I just like his attitude and the way he has that quiet leadership.
Yeah, same here. He was my choice, Jokic. Just the all-around game, great shooter, passer, knows how to use his body, makes everybody around him better. Jokic is a no-brainer for me. I also want to point out, too, in case the question was interpreted as you get their skills, but you stay the same size, right? Because that could have been interpreted that way. I'm going to give three choices for that. It's Jason Williams, because I'm roughly the same size. I'm roughly the same size as these three players in height. I'm going with Jason Williams, Allen Iverson, or Steph Curry. The order of that would probably be first, Allen Iverson, second, Jason Williams, and third, Steph Curry. Again, my obsession with the way Jason Williams handles the ball, the way he passed the ball, just the look of his pull-up and whatnot, his swagger and everything. God, that would be fun, right? But those would probably be my three choices for players roughly around my height and position. I'm a combo guard in real life. I play point guard and shooting guard, and I'm 6'2".
Yeah, I guess if it was around my height, it would have to be like a Derrick Rose, Steph Curry, or even a Ben Gordon, being able to shoot like Ben Gordon, and he was an underrated finisher at the rim as well. Had some pretty nice dunks back in the day, even in the NBA, actually. And you bring up an interesting point about getting their height, or not getting their height, because I also thought about Wemby, because he is a tremendous talent, obviously, but I think life at 7'3" would be very inconvenient.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool at first, right?
Yeah.
All eyes on you. The fame that comes with it, but then also the expectations that come with it as well. Look how critical we've been of Wemby, even on the podcast, stating he doesn't know how to use his height properly, right? He's not on the block enough. He's not, taking advantage of his size, all that stuff. He's doing step backs on smaller defenders as opposed to, taking him down on the block or just getting closer to the rim. So I think that the expectations go up when you're that size too. Even players that were between 6'10" and 7 foot, because of that height, the expectations, whatever. Remember Dragon Bender? He was way overhyped, right? They were talking about him, being, a star in the NBA, and he ended up being, I want to say, a top 5 pick
in the Suns, yeah,
the NBA draft for the Suns. But how much do you think that expectation had to do with his size and his ability to step out and hit a shot, as opposed to just his ability to step out and hit a shot, right? It's why they start comparing players like Dragan Bender to, oh, he's going to be the next Dirk, or he's going to be the next Kristaps Porzingis, or even, you know, his floor is somebody like Mehmet Okur or something like that. So I think that higher expectations also come with height and size.
Oh, definitely. And Darko is probably another example there of picking that young, tall player who they thought had that array of skills and didn't quite live up to the hype, and also wasn't that interested in basketball, as we later found out. And of course, you talk about those really tall players. Ralph Sampson, we played with your 86 roster, sidebar here, played with your 1986 roster for NBA 2K19 recently, had a pretty fun session of that. And how fun was it to play with Ralph Sampson?
Well, I mean, we were feeding him more than Hakeem because Hakeem was being guarded by Kareem, and we had the mismatch with Sampson on Kurt Rambis. And we dominated Rambis with Sampson. Yeah, 7'4", long arms, very skilled, can hit that mid-range and deep mid-range shot, has the hooks, has the dunks, can, you know, run the floor. Is a menace on defense because of that size and length. Yeah, and obviously with Ralph Sampson too, the expectations were through the roof in part because of his size. So Andrew, let's get to the community responses to this question. Neon and Butch Gaming at Stildo33 states Stoico Vrankovic and says, just kidding. Yeah, I don't think any basketball players out there, if they remember who Stoico is, really are trying to imitate him or want to be like him on a basketball court.
Hell of a reference, though. Hell of a reference.
Yeah, great reference. I mean, I remember watching Stoico when he played with the Celtics. Not a very memorable player in the NBA, but he was otherwise outside of the NBA. His real choices are Magic Johnson and Penny Hardaway. He says Penny is up there as he had athleticism and flavor to his game. He thinks that Penny is a hybrid of MJ and Magic, and he's not the first person to say that. And those are actually his honorable mentions. His true choice, he says, hands down, Larry Bird, because not only was he a great basketball player, but he was also the best trash talker, like me. And I will say that Stildo33 talks a lot of trash. He doesn't always back it up, but he has backed it up before. And he's a lot of fun to connect with on basketball video games. But yeah, some great names thrown out there. He didn't mention anybody in today's NBA, and but he's similar to us. He's not really a big fan of today's NBA.
And great picks, obviously. And that came to mind for us as well. Larry Bird's attitude, his swagger, his ability, as I said, to point to a spot on the floor and say to his defender, I'm getting the ball here and I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to hit it in your face. And then follow through on that.
T. Gentry at Bucky T states Kobe Bryant for sure. For current NBA, I'd say Kyrie Irving. So, yeah, good choices there. Obviously, Kobe's skill set, dedicated defender. Many all-defensive teams. He has that Jordan-esque game with the flair and whatnot. And young Kobe was jumping out of the gym as well. So that's obviously a great choice. And Kyrie Irving. I mean, a lot of coaches and players have spoken fondly of Kyrie and his skill set and his ability to handle the ball. Some people have stated that he's the greatest, ball handler of all time. And, he makes difficult shots, adjusted layups, etc. Obviously, it would be fun to play like Kobe or Kyrie.
Yeah, and look, as far as where Kyrie Irving's ball handling ranks in NBA history, that's a whole other debate. Obviously, I don't know about him being the best, only because there are some other players who have had some truly great handles as well. But yeah, certainly would be fun to have the skill set of anyone who could have the ball on the string and finish the way he does and shoot as well. Had a great performance in the 2016 NBA Finals. Always need to bring that up. And yeah, I mean, as far as Kobe goes, how many people still shoot at a washing basket or a hamper or a garbage bin, throwing out some rubbish, Derek, and say Kobe?
Yeah, and they probably missed the majority of the time, which Kobe did not.
True.
But, those are great choices. I want to bring up that Penny is a very popular player with the young crowd. If they go back and watch his highlights, based on the social media comments that I've seen, comments on YouTube, and with people who saw him play live. The next two responses bring up Penny, and Stildo also brought up Penny. So I find that fascinating, and that just shows you how special Penny was as a player. Rock at Jeff Cortina states, past, Anthony Hardaway, present, Franz Wagner of the Orlando Magic. Another Penny mention, Big J at Ja J World 3 states, from the past, I'd play like Penny. Current, I'd like to play like Paul George. But yeah, I'm loving the Penny Hardaway love.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, I picture that spinning step back. That's one of his iconic highlights, and such a tremendous player. Such a shame that he had that surgery that turned out to be so destructive to his knee that he was never quite the same player again. Had some good years after that, as we've mentioned before, Derek, but never quite the same. Never was that next MJ or that next Magic or that hybrid of the two, as Stildo mentioned. So that was unfortunate, but still had a few fine years there. And like you said, very popular. Actually, one of the old Little Penny commercials with Chris Rock came up my feed the other day. So that was a fun throwback to watch that.
They don't make commercials like that anymore.
Nah.
I used to love the old NBA commercials, even like the Grant Hill drink Sprite commercials, right? And then the Bird and Jordan McDonald's commercials and whatnot. So yeah, the Larry Johnson Grandmama ads and whatnot. So yeah, I think that the game isn't promoted the same way as when we were younger. I felt like it was promoted much better. I thought the stars were promoted better. I thought the advertising was better. It was more creative, etc.
And Paul George, kind of an interesting career that he's definitely a skill player, Derek, but it never really comes out when his teams have really needed it. The Clippers experiment certainly didn't pan out. Dime Drop had a very good take on this as far as how he's this enigma of a player, that he does have this skill set, but he's not able to come through and be that franchise player or utilize those skills when they really need him to. And shout out to Dime Dropper. Unfortunately, lost his house in the wildfires at the moment. Thinking of you and hoping that you can get back on your feet ASAP.
Yeah, I also want to point out that a lot of people out there are scumbags. Somebody created a GoFundMe page pretending to be Dime Dropper and took in a ton of donations that were supposed to go to him just to try to, capitalize on that situation. So, yeah, and unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me because I think that a lot of people out there are only looking out for themselves and they don't care about others. And that guy is not only a piece of work, but just a low-life scumbag. So on a basketball-related note, I've always thought of Paul George athletically as somebody kind of like Brandon Roy. I always thought that Paul George was a smooth operator, much like Brandon Roy, as far as the way he handled the ball, got to his spot, his shooting, the way he attacked the rim, almost kind of like a methodical approach to the game, but still super effective. Obviously, it would be fun to play like Paul George or Brandon Roy. I think Brandon Roy was an incredible player when healthy, but like Paul George, Brandon Roy struggled with injuries. Right. And unfortunately, Brandon Roy's career was cut short, much shorter than Paul George. But Paul George has the size and the skill set that would be fun to have. There's no question.
And of course, to finish on a note about dunks, because we do love dunks here on the NLSC podcast, I'd love to be able to do that 360 windmill against the grain.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to just dunk it all.
True.
Just one dunk in my lifetime would have been excellent. Stasho Bro at Nate Stasho, Live 01 legend, states, Earl Boykins, he had the best work ethic in NBA history. And to be that height, which I believe he was around 5'5", Andrew, you had to have amazing work ethic to make it to the NBA and be as successful as he was in the NBA.
Height over height, right? So, yeah, absolutely great work ethic there. And some skill too, obviously.
The other Live 01 legend, Roger Ward, states, Charles Sprewell, his dunks were always so angry, and he had a nice jump shot, too. Yeah, an underrated shooter. Get a shot off anywhere on the floor, nice-looking shot. And, yeah, the angry dunks, the dunks with style. Some people were saying that they consider him one of the toughest players of all time. And, I don't blame Roger for that choice. I loved Charles Sprewell as a player.
Fantastic all-around player. Yeah, he was actually one of the three-point leaders for a few years there in the 90s, and obviously the volume has changed over the years, but still well over 100 three-pointers for quite a few years there, on top of having that slashing ability and the defense and a bit of playmaking as well. Yeah, also a big fan of Spree.
And heading over to our Discord, we did receive one response from Juicy Shack Meat. He states, my answer probably won't make the podcast episode. Well, congratulations, it did. We were able to get to it. But he states, from history, I'd love to play like Raptors era Vince Carter to perform all the dunks imaginable and shoot decently from three. From current NBA, I'd like to play like Donovan Mitchell. I definitely agree with you there. To recapture his all-around grace and swagger. I mean, who wouldn't want to play like Vince Carter, Andrew?
Yeah, I think a lot of us want to have that ability to throw it down like that. And you remember when Vince Carter said no more dunks? Yeah, he was just kidding about that.
So, Andrew, let's get to our final topic, which was an NBA Live 2004 session. We controlled the Suns, and we went against the CPU Rockets. And I chose this matchup because I found it fascinating. These are two teams that had big transitions the following season in 04-05. Of course, the Suns started that transition before the trade deadline during the 03-04 season when they traded Marbury and Penny to New York. But the next season, 04-05, is when the Suns signed Steve Nash, which started the 7 seconds or less Suns, which propelled them to be one of the most dominant teams in the Western Conference during the mid-2000s. And referencing the Rockets, on June 29, 2004, Tracy McGrady was traded by the Orlando Magic with Reese Gaines, Juwan Howard, and Tyronn Lue to the Houston Rockets for Kelvin Cato, Steve Francis, and Coutinho Mobley. So that paired Tracy McGrady and Yao Ming, and unfortunately they weren't able to play together long, and certainly not play together healthy for long. But yeah, huge transitions for these two teams. So we were controlling pre-Nash Suns versus pre-T-Mac Rockets. And I thought the game was a lot of fun. You and I had a lot of great alley-oops. We actually had to make a comeback in the fourth to win that game, and we just went on this incredible run. Sean Marion with some sweet moves, crossover, spin moves with that freestyle control, throwing it down. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that shoulder fake you made with Sean Marion one way, and then just spinning baseline to throw down that huge one-handed jam. Yeah, that is satisfying any game you do it. 2004, certainly one of my all-time favorites. I have to admit, Derek, that I was trying to get that dunk with Amar'e. I just wanted that big dunk with Amar'e just to send you that Stephon Marbury gif.
That move you had on Yao Ming where you drop stepped and then he rose up with one hand and threw it down. Yeah, that was similar to the one-handed dunk that Stoudemire threw down. It was like a tomahawk, which propelled Stephon Marbury to have that reaction, right? So I had to pair those two sequences in the NLSC top 10 plays of the week. But I have an issue with Amar'e Stoudemire and NBA Live 2004 and many bigs in that game. They just don't move right. And it reminds me of issues that I've had with recent NBA 2K games. You can't take anybody to the rim from the high post with Amar'e in NBA Live 2004 because he's too damn slow, right? You can't, throw an up fake, get by your guy, and throw it down in traffic with him because he's too slow. He's slower than he was in real life. And I think developers of games try too hard sometimes to create a balance on the court. And by doing so, they underdo a lot of players at certain positions.
Oh,
right. Yeah. And the same thing happens all the time in NBA 2K, whether it's the legends or sometimes even the current teams, where you have a big guy in real life that can really move, right? He can get up and down the floor, sometimes a one-man fast break. He's taking it from the perimeter at times. He's getting players in the high post and he's juking one way, going the other, and throwing it down or making an acrobatic room at the rim. But he's doing that in real life. But in the video game, he's an absolute slug, right? And it's because they're trying to create that balance and they're like, well, this big guy can't move like that because then he's going to move like a guard. But in real life, he can move like that. So you can have those struggles in a lot of basketball video games over the last 20, 25 years because the developers were trying to create this balance that didn't actually represent those real life players.
Oh, definitely. And also as far as finishing at the rim, getting blocked or being forced into that adjusted layup or not being able to finish strong at the rim. So they don't want people just dunking all over the defense, kind of like Live 2003. I mean, you talk about that being a transitional year for the Rockets and Suns, also kind of a transitional year for NBA Live 2004, coming from Live 2003 that was kind of leaning in that arcade direction where you could dunk over everybody very easily. So they're trying to have that physicality, bringing in that 10-man freestyle. It's still new technology, hasn't been quite as polished as it will become in Live 2005 and Live 06. It is that transitional year and trying to have that player movement and that physicality. Also bringing in the new rating system. We're bringing in the raw ratings of 0 to 99 from the database into the game itself. So a lot of changes were happening in Live 2004. It is still a great game, but you can see some of that transitional roughness.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I also want to point out that Steve Francis killed us in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Tino Mobley did some damage. So before we end this segment and end the show, I do want to bring up that I looked up the first meeting between the Suns and Rockets for the 03-04 season. And at the time, the Suns were 3-5 and the Rockets were 6-2. The Rockets won that game 90-85. And Sean Marion had 14 points and 9 rebounds. Joe Johnson, 10 points and 12 rebounds from that shooting guard spot. Stephon Marbury had 33 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists on 52.4% shooting. So hell of a game for Starbury. Amar'e Stoudemire had 18 points, 9 rebounds. And off the bench, Penny went 1 for 4. Obviously, struggling, still trying to make it back from his injury woes. 1 for 4, 2 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist with 2 steals. For the Rockets, Steve Francis had 26 points, leading the way, 4 rebounds on close to 50% shooting. He was 9 for 19. Yao Ming had 21 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks on 8 for 17 shooting. Jim Jackson had 11 points, Katino Mobley 10 points and 8 assists, and Calvin Cato was the other starter with 6 points and 10 rebounds. Off the bench, leading the way was Nakbar. In 12 minutes, he had 8 points. That's fantastic production. He went 2 for 2 from 3 and shot 60% from the floor. So I thought that was interesting to look up a matchup between those teams during the 03-04 season. And yeah, the stars showed out.
Definitely. And we were playing with default rosters, which are accurate as of the off-season. Some of the late off-season moves not accounted for, obviously, because of the roster cutoff date. So Glenn Rice was still on that Rockets team. He had a couple of, kind of a lost year in 2002 from memory, and then a bounce-back year in 2003 with the Rockets. With injuries, he was past his prime at that point, unfortunately. Ended his career on kind of a down note with the Clippers there, barely playing and then being released before the season was even done. But
he hit a game winner with them. I do want to point out, it's on YouTube. Look it up. Glenn Rice, game winner with Clippers. Hit a mid-range shot, won the game, was all pumped about it. Kind of a nice way to go out, right?
Oh, it's true. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I think you've mentioned that before, actually, and I meant to look it up before. But I do wish that he and some other players around that time who came along in the late 80s or early 90s and retired around 2004, 2005 got a better send-off. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, even for former All-Stars. But yeah, Glenn Rice on that team in the game.
Mitch Richmond, too. Mitch Richmond had kind of a sad ending to his career. Kind of got forgotten about.
Yeah, got a ring,
as a result,
I guess. But
to be honest. And yeah, but he wasn't the Mitch Richmond we knew.
No.
Right. And he was at the end of the bench, for the Lakers and whatnot. And he was a hell of a player in his prime, and he was a hell of a young player as well. So yeah, Mitch Richmond is often forgotten about, but he is a hell of a player.
A topic we might have to circle back to sometime. These legends that we remember that didn't end their career on a high note and perhaps deserved a better send-off.
Agreed. That'd be fun.
But thank you to everybody who responded to Derek's community question. Yeah, I think a lot of us had hoop dreams, Derek.
Oh, absolutely. And I think anybody would want to play like Penny. So I understand Penny being a common choice. What a player, what an athlete, all around game. Just another career cut short due to injuries, unfortunately.
And once again, great commercials.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, thank you for tuning in, and please join us again next week, and every week, on the NLSC, nb-live.com, our YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on social media, just so we can get in touch with us, and of course, stay up to date with all of our content. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D for3G and at D for384. I'm also on the NLSC, D for3, and on YouTube, D for3.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on X. The NLSC is on X and Facebook at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, nb-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone!